very difficult, this would mean the closure of Bridport and Derby surgeries. And it would mean the surgery in Scottsdale would be opening and closing sporadically. No one would know what was happening, and my service would soon be considered unreliable. I did not feel this was in the best interests of the public. I would be unable to provide after-hour services or on weekends and public holidays because locums don't work on these days. I would not be allowed to make home visits without a supervising locum. In a rural area with many elderly and no public transport, this is completely unacceptable. But most importantly, I would not be able to respond to emergencies of any kind. If I were to come across a road accident, I would have to stop myself giving assistance. This is worse than being an ordinary citizen. In other words, not only would I be greatly restricted in my delivery of health services, I believe these conditions would prevent me from fulfilling my Hippocratic oath, which I swore to uphold when I graduated. So I hope you will understand my rejection of their proposal. I'm very proud of the service and support I've provided.
You can say it again.
Always to the best of my ability over the last 30 years. Finally, I would like to offer my thanks to my wife and family and all my staff who have worked tirelessly to keep things going since the 27th. I would like to thank Yasmin Rawnsley, Kevin Davis, Brian Kahn, and Bill and Betty Calder for their actions and their support. I would like to thank everyone in the community for their emails, letters, and phone calls, for the petition, for the rally, for the bus trip to Hobart, and for their continuing and unwavering belief in me. I am very lucky to have had the opportunity to serve such a loyal community. Yours respectfully, Dr. Paul McGinity.
Three cheers for Dr McGinity.
Hooray! Hooray! Hooray!
I've got some comments, but I won't make them. I'd next like, if we could have, being a lady, and all as she is, I would ask Sue Napier if she would be the first speaker, then Kim, and then Brian. What about Tanya?
No.
Tanya would like to have, perhaps have a word
I'd
at the
like to have the
finish.
last.
Wants last.
Start exchange.
I'll give you Sue Napier.
Well, it's fantastic to see so many people out here tonight. I'm not surprised. I saw the bus ride, about the details about the bus ride when people went down to be able to make it absolutely clear that the people of the North East fully support Dr McGinity. And for 30 years service, I think he deserves every bit of that. And in particular, we deserve some, he deserves in particular, and his supporting public deserves some answers. I just looked in my little notebook, and 27th of the 3rd, 09 was a really interesting Friday afternoon for me. So I did get notice from Ken Campbell, from the Minister's office, that this was likely to happen. And I said, well, whoa, wait a minute, it's got about 3,000 patients up there. You can't just suddenly do this to him on a Friday afternoon. And given that if you're actually causing him to cease practice, it must be a very serious allegation. You know, is there some way that we can know what kind of allegation it is? And of course no detail was forthcoming on that, and of course the concern has been also coming from the AMA, with whom I've had some discussions. They are really concerned that serious allegations can be made like this, and even Dr McGinity couldn't find out what the detail of that allegations was. and I'm delighted that the Supreme Court is going to take on his course, or his claim for being denied natural justice. So I did do some work through it pretty quickly on that Friday afternoon to be able to see whether there was a way to. I mean, usually if an allegation is made about a GP, they're given notice, they're given an opportunity to provide some information to the Medical Council of Tasmania. This was a very unusual step to be taken against a GP about whom I have only ever heard very positive things, and in fact we did some work in Parliament to be able to find out why under the protocols that were being used in relation to the ambulance, that where Dr McGinity in a number of cases had recommended that a patient be taken straight to the LGH. In fact, he was being overridden in his medical recommendation. That was a concern to the AMA, as much as obviously it was a concern to the families that were being affected by this. And I think we're yet to see the resolution of that matter. But of course I wanted some reassurance that Dr McGinity wasn't just being punished for the fact that we were trying to get some answers, at first quietly through the Minister's office, and then later on actually publicly in Parliament, because we weren't getting answers, surprise, surprise, through the Minister's office. And I think there's a tendency to underestimate the significance of these kinds of decisions for rural people. I mean, one of the key supports for Dr McGinity is certainly coming from his ability and his willingness to be able to make home visits. And that's a bit of a it's a bit unusual, but it's a bit bad language, isn't it? It's a bit of a potentially dying practice if it doesn't occur. The fact that he's out there in the middle of the bush trying to help people where that service mightn't otherwise be available. The home visits, the fact that he's servicing Derby and so many different centres. You can't half wonder whether there's a little bit of professional politics also involved in this. Being a GP in rural Tasmania is a tough job, no matter how you provide that service, and I take my hat off to people who do that and don't take the easier jobs that are available in your bigger cities. And I think GPs in rural settings, regardless of how they operate in their practices, need support, but so does certainly Dr McGinity. So you'll know that Peter Gutman has been doing a lot of work on this. He's an apology tonight. All the libs are up here or tomorrow. But I decided I'd come up and do an overnighter and then still be here for tomorrow as well. It's really interesting because this is one of my first evening functions that I've started going to, and yes, the health record is going well. It's my last day of chemo here. But I know that 1 in 8 women have been through this, so I'm no special case. I'm just going through what a lot of other people in the community go through. And that gives me a bit better understanding too. Some of the issues that you all face when you enter the big C, hits you, and it's. But then there's, I think we should probably be treating it as an ongoing, chronic illness nowadays, because it is so treatable in many cases. But that's another issue, isn't it? So as far as the libs are concerned, we really want to try and get to the bottom of what has happened as far as why Tasmania is very aware of the concerns that both Peter and I have about the way this has been dealt with. We had discussions with the AMA and a number of other groups to be able to see what help we can